what do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube, presented by Pure Options Precision Crafted Cannabis. This is the weekend for the Pure Options 420 Lansing Block Party at the Frandor location. Sean Kingston, Desmond Jones, DJs, and more. It's a consumption event, of course, with live games, food trucks, and more. 10 a.m. to around 6 p.m. At the Frandor location, as I mentioned once before. Great deals starting right now, even before 420 on 417. 20 pre-rolls for $42, 42-ounce small bud ounces, all sorts of other cool stuff. Swing by any Pure Options location heading into the week and take advantage of these deals. And as always, let them know Couch and the Rube sent you. If you spend $50, you get also a free eighth of ProGrow. And our Wednesday afternoon show presented by our friends at Front 43 Neighborhood Pub and Cask & Company Kitchen and Bar. That's just north of Frandor near the East Lansing border. Another place to make part of your Saturday. So if you're coming into town for the spring game, you've got the Pure Options block party, which is going to be awesome, and you've got Front 43 right there. If you're looking for a place to grab a beer before or after Pure Options, or just make it part of your day, sort of an in-house tailgate, great place to check out Front 43 and Cask & Company on East Saginaw near the near the Lansing, East Lansing border. And again, it's two adjoining restaurants, two distinct vibes, one outstanding menu and beer selection. Jason, how you doing, brother?
We're dropping MFers now?
Hey, buddy, what's going on? What are we talking about today? WNBA salaries or
a lot of people seem fired up about that. There's a lot to get into, and that drop is
James.
Yeah, we got James coming on today.
We're dropping MFers now?
I was looking for the right word, and I suck at words today, so this is going to be a good pod. But yeah, we're going to talk Pistons with James here in just a few minutes.
Before we start, I have to say something. We were talking about the Michigan Panthers on the Hot Take show, and someone tweeted at me, I forget who it was, but apparently Kenny Willekes plays for the Michigan Panthers.
Your guy?
My guy.
And you didn't know it.
By the way, in my defense, though, Kenny doesn't really update any social media anymore, I don't think, at least Instagram, because that's where I would get my Kenny Willekes news. But I thought it was very funny. And the guy was like, I thought it was really funny. And then you mentioned Kenny Willekes, and he's on the Panthers team. So I guess I need to tune in now.
Yeah.
Jesus. I guess Lewerke's on the Panthers. And
there's lots of stuff. Yeah, actually, that should be the team. Maybe they're doing exactly what we said, and we just weren't paying any attention.
I guess not.
But their marketing.
I figure, the Lansing State Journal, online edition would have my back and let me know.
You would think.
State players are playing. Or
you would think. Foreshadowing was the word I was looking for with James.
Thank God.
Yeah, right. So a bunch of things we want to get into today. We're going to talk to James for a bit. There's some NIL stuff I want to talk about and how it pertains to Michigan State and some of the stuff that's happening in basketball, especially.
When are we going to have Jeff Goodman on? You keep going after him, so
I wasn't going after him. I'm just quoting. I'm using his information. And there's some stuff happening today in the NCAA that I think is meaningful and going to impact MSU and Michigan and everybody else, frankly. So we'll get into that.
And dumb people in gambling also.
Yeah, so if you see that Jonte Porter, the forever former Toronto Raptor.
Brother of Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah.
For the Denver Nuggets.
Banned for life from the NBA for providing information to an associate who placed pretty sizable prop bets on him. First of all, the size of the prop bets on Jonte Porter, like a barely role player, not even a full-year contract guy.
Yeah.
What was the book that was taking that bet? Most books cap prop bets pretty low.
500.
Yeah, and you're talking
80,000. I thought it was $80.
First of all,
$80,000?
What book is taking that? And do I need a new book? Is the next question.
To win $1.1 million. See, that's what it's with the Ohtani thing we talked about too. The numbers, they don't make any sense because we know a little bit more than others because we're degenerates about the gambling side of this. But by the way, Adam Silver must be ecstatic that this is the guy that did it first. because then you can ban this guy to the moon and not have to worry if it was like Luka or someone else or someone even relevant, or maybe his brother.
That's what I was going to say. Even if it's his brother, it's like taking a key piece off a championship team. That's a problem, right?
But like you said, though, we're talking $80,000. If you called up any bookie or any book and said, "I want $80,000. Here's my parlay," and it's on a guy that I guarantee the bookmakers don't even know who the fuck it is.
Yeah.
So I need to know more details of this.
Well, they flagged the bet. He didn't get the payout.
Well, no shit.
Yeah,
that bet would be flagged even if it weren't Porter himself.
And how do you think that? Like, if I were to, and nobody would ever take this bet, but if somebody named with my name who covers Michigan State were to place an $80,000 bet on A.J. Hoggard to get more than 6 assists in a game, that would be like you'd have to be a moron to think that wasn't going to get flagged. Like, nobody would take that bet.
And you don't know whether or not he's going to hit it, right? Unless you're in cahoots with AJ.
Well, that's right.
It
would be dumb for me to do it, right?
Right. It's Porter himself that's doing this. And when you go collect on the $1.1 million, like, the bookmaker isn't suspicious. It sounds ridiculous to me.
Yeah, it is.
Is he like the fall guy, the face for, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
80 G's on a parlay.
Incredible. Other notable news before we get to James. Red Wings lose. Kind of a fun last 2 nights the way they won these 2 games in overtime, but they screwed up enough in the weeks before it that the Capitals winning on an empty net. Even it was a tie game empty net goal sent the Red Wings home. It sucks because it would have been fun to have them in the playoffs. But also what the. I'm so bad at transitions and words today.
Cockburn.
But also, little news MSU football-wise, had availability with Jonathan Smith on Tuesday. And the biggest thing that came out of that was the spring game is actually going to have a little bit of a game element, a little bit of scrimmaging element. We may actually learn some things. We're looking at 4 10-minute running clock quarters as part of the drills and things they do, which to me is plenty. That's perfect. Like, obviously, I wouldn't do it if I were running the program because I wouldn't put any of those guys on tape. And I had this take yesterday. I wouldn't have spring games the way they used to be. But if for somebody in my position that is more worried about being able to analyze it and write a column, and somebody in a fan's position who wants to go to the game and actually learn something and see some football, I think this is pretty cool. It sounds like there'll at least be something to watch that's not too gimmicky there, right?
Sounds like you're really enthused about it.
I am. No, I give myself.
I know, but you're on record for saying how much you hate the spring game, and for you to try to get people interested just makes me laugh.
I have a concoction. Spring game week. I spend a lot of time with Pure Options, getting myself through the week,
smart
and motivated, and then I basically take a steroid shot in the ass on Saturday, and I can fake it till I make it, and I'm all the way through. Like, it's like the stuff they gave horses in the '60s, and I'm in. I'm all in, and that's how I come at it with enthusiasm.
And Jonathan Smith, he had a great opportunity to say, like, how about we tailgate, right? And people would have been like, hell yeah.
And
is the weather supposed to be nice? I haven't looked at Saturday.
Oh, let me look that up real quick. If he had said that too, that would have been like pressure on the school to follow through. The new coach wants a party. He wants people to tailgate.
Be responsible. You got to preface it with all that bullshit. But
yeah. So what we're getting Saturday is. Well, small crowd Saturday.
Uh-oh.
I hadn't looked at this before.
Might want to look at that first.
The low temperature of the week is the high on Saturday. God, that sucks for the block party too. Chris Eastlick, get your shit together. What are we doing here, meteorologist? 48-degree high, blustery winds.
Provenzano Jr., come on, man.
Like around there, like 2 days later, it's 60 and sunny. I mean. That's not good work by the weather folks. It's such a crapshoot this time of year.
At least we'll be high, you know.
That's the advantage of the. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple things. One,
helps the weather.
Pure Options can make you forget some of the weather. And you know what else is indoors? Front 43 and Cask and Company. Great place nearby. Make that part of your day. You'll love the food. You'll love the menu. You want to go ahead and give James a call?
Sure, man.
And we'll get to that Pistons interview. Another cool thing that Pure Options is doing while he's getting James on the phone here, next week for the NFL draft in their Detroit store, live music, DJs, 420 style deals, the same deals from this week in the Detroit store only, because obviously Detroit is hosting the NFL draft, 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. on April 25th, $20 pre-rolls again for $40, all that stuff. Lots of cool stuff going on at the Detroit Pure Option Store. So if you're headed down for the NFL Draft in Detroit a week from now, swing by Pure Options and take advantage of a lot of those really cool deals. Pleased now to be joined by
We're dropping MF now?
a good friend, senior writer for The Athletic, mercifully covering the Pistons for quite a few years now, the great James Edwards. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Good. How happy are you the season's over?
I'm happy because I'm happy, but I'm helping out with playoff coverage. So
I heard this. Over. Yeah, I heard this. I can hear it in your voice, the excitement that you don't have to watch the Pistons anymore for the season. I can hear the excitement. What do you know? What team yet you're following in the playoffs?
I will be helping out the great John Krasinski, who should not get mistaken with John Krasinski from The Office.
Which would be really cool if he did, if he was that
which
guy.
Would be cool.
Yeah.
Our John Krasinski is a little cooler. Covers the Timberwolves. He is not able to travel for the Timberwolves Suns series for personal matters, so I'll be in Phoenix for games 3 and 4 and possibly 6 if it gets to that.
Nice.
Covering the Timberwolves, yeah.
Well, at least you get to rap with some good hoops.
Yeah, get to see Ant-Man live in the flesh and actually cover him, so it should be fun.
Yeah, no, he's as exciting as he's certainly, I think, the top American young hope, right, in the NBA right now, and is as exciting as maybe any player other than Wembanyama. In the league. Would you say that's true?
Yes. Off the top of my head, I mean, I might be biased, but because he's one of my favorite players to watch, but I think that's probably fair. Yeah.
All right, you've done a really good job of not only covering the Pistons, but I think giving new, interesting information that sometimes I can even read the tea leaves through. Like you were all over the idea that they were going to hire a new president of basketball operations to oversee things, whether Troy Weaver and Monty Williams are a part of that. We'll find out. What is your – if you had to put on a crystal ball for, October of next year, do you think those two guys are part of the organization or either of them?
So this is the best way, I think, to break it down. And my podcast co-host Vincent Goodwill did a great analogy. If there's a circle graph and there's 4 parts, and all 4 parts make up Troy comes back, no Monty. Monty comes back, no Troy. They're both gone. They're both back. I don't think one consumes the circle graph significantly more than the others, but I think neither one comes back probably has the bigger piece of the pie. That's how I feel. Okay. Simply because I think it's not a complicated situation. I mean, this is how I would describe it. I think Troy comes back if Troy wants to work under somebody, which I just can't imagine he would want to, right? Like, I think the calls to Troy and the calls to Monty could be different. Like, I think there are things in Troy that they value and should value and would like to keep him around. But if he is not willing to work under basically a boss when he was the quote-unquote boss, I just don't see it. Now, as for Monty, I think that there are questions there, and what's saving him most is the contract. That's just my point of view on the situation, yeah.
See, when you've got, I mean, and maybe if he's got a different team, it's all right, but you've got to know he's all in, right? Is that the other thing they've got to hear, that he really wants to be doing this? I know what the contract is, but sometimes I question that. Do you ever question whether he, and obviously he turned him down like 16 times before he took the job, so he wasn't sure he wanted to do it. Do you ever question whether he still wants to be in the fight here?
That's a tough one. There were points this season where I questioned it. There were points this season where my conspiracy theory brain, which isn't very large, but fun stuff, I like to pull out conspiracy theories like basketball. There was times I had conspiracy theories as to, is he trying to get fired? Is he trying to get somebody else fired? Then there was times where I felt like he was truly passionate about this team and has talked for quite a while now that he wants to be back next year. I think it shouldn't go unnoticed that he did admit that, like, part of he said, I'd be lying if the money wasn't a big part of it when he got hired, right?
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing with him, and I don't think it's something people have really talked about yet, and maybe because it's too premature, is are we sure that, like, if Monty loses this job that he gets another one? My hunch is probably not.
Yeah, I don't absolutely.
Could be the end of the road. So even though he could be going off in the sunset, a very, 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 very rich man, he's not old. Like, maybe he wants to try to salvage this so that this isn't the end for him in terms of being an NBA head coach.
Well, let me ask the same about Troy. I mean, Troy not wanting to work under anybody. This is still a roster he's partly put together. Like, there's vindication for Troy in this if he sticks around. If he sticks around and part of the group that he put together winds up being the answer is to relevance and being a competitive team in the years to come, and he's part of the organization, A, he may get some credit for that. B, this might not be the end of the road for him, but I can't imagine he's going to get a top gig either at this point, correct?
I would say I think he has more of a opportunity because I think the notion around the NBA is that Detroit's front office / decision-making room is a mess.
Mm.
And I don't think Monty's – do I think Monty had a great roster? No. Do I think it was a 14-win team? No. I think the biggest issues with Monty is some of the, like, starting Killian Hayes 30 games, benching Ivy for Killian Hayes. I don't mind benching Ivy, but benching him for Killian Hayes, that it just was kind of hard to understand. Not staggering Cade and Jaden, playing all bench when the bench was terrible all season. Like, those are things you don't expect the highest paid coach in the NBA to make.
Or any coach in, like, 6th grade basketball, right?
Or many coaches in today's game. Yeah,
right.
Like, so I think that I think Troy has an opportunity. I think people can see, like, okay, that might not be the best environment, and I don't know who's exactly running the show or how much pull he had in certain decisions, X, Y, and Z. So I could see that. And I think he also is just, like, I think people do around the league really like Troy. And so I don't think it's the end of the road for him. I don't. Do I think he'll go straight to running a front office? Probably not. Do I think he could get another shot? I wouldn't be surprised.
I think the thing that was, like, I love his drafts. I really like his drafts. And I think that's, even if certain guys do and don't pan out to the degree you want, I think there's just been a number of really smart moves and picks and things at the time that look really wise, and some of which have looked great. Doesn't seem to do a great job of turning veterans into assets or anything like that, and there's putting guys around. We all get that at this point. He's
the
probably
team building aspect of it.
Yeah. But I'm also nervous about. I've seen a Stan Van Gundy run team. I'm nervous about the next guy. Like, if I'm hiring the next guy, I want that person to also know we don't want you to put your own imprint too much on things. Don't think, these guys who are here already also have to be your guys, even if you didn't draft them. It can't be, I don't know.
There's a couple guys I would trade, but I hear your point. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into that. So my move here, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, and you've dealt with my texts all year when I have ideas.
Can I just put a bow really quickly on the last point you made?
Yes.
I think the primary reason people have an issue with Troy, and when I say people, I mean fans. It's not. I just think that the team. So this is it. His biggest issue was that the team was bad before he got here, even if they declared they're officially rebuilding, right? So he's working under a different timeline than everybody who's rooting for this team. It has been 15, 16, how many years now? I don't know. Since they've won a playoff game and have been just, like, mediocre to poor. So there's a sense of urgency from the outside more than him. And I think that the biggest issue with him is he's just been too frugal. He hasn't made any big commitments to anything yet, which could be, I didn't mind the offseason they had until it played out, right? Like, I don't mind if you don't like a guy in free agency or you think the class is weak, like, don't just spend just to spend, but don't also get up on the podium and probably say that realistic goal is to be in contention for the playoffs either, right? That's where that's putting too much on the young development of guys, and they drafted just too many guys who couldn't shoot. Like, just the roster balance just wasn't there. So I think the biggest issue with Troy is just the frugalness, and I don't mind the frugalness, but also you can't say, this team's ready to go when it's not.
Yeah, that's so. If you're trying to reshape the roster with an understanding that let's start with from everything I've read from you and seem to understand, like Cade this summer, and I have to sometimes remember if we were talking versus text or what I read from you.
Don't get me in trouble.
Yeah, I know, but Cade this summer is going to get the rookie max extension. I would guess you believe that, correct? And
yeah.
And so he's going to be part of things. Outside of that, and by the way, just so people are aware, you mentioned your podcast earlier with Vinny Goodwill, the Detroit Players, which is fantastic. It's a go to listen for me. Worth the subscription. Worth paying for. I'm glad you guys are doing that.
It took you 5 months to learn that I had a podcast again. But I appreciate it. Once you got in, you were all the way in. So I appreciate it.
It's $4 a month. It's well worth it. And I don't know how I missed it forever. When I found it, it was like Christmas morning. Like I caught up. I was excited. It was great.
It's like the person who's just now heard of Breaking Bad. Like, I'm jealous of that person. Thank you for putting me on the same level as Breaking Bad. Yeah,
or the person who's just discovering that women play basketball this year and now has a lot of hot takes about it. That's the other. So Cade's going to be a part of things. The other three guys, like, my opinion is, if you're going to trade somebody, then the guy who probably fits the least but has the most value around the league might be Jaden Ivey, in part because the Pistons have screwed it up with Ivey, and there's probably a lot of intrigue around him still. And yet I still see the issues that he had at Purdue that Matt Painter talked about once when I was in a stairwell with him at the Big Ten tournament. Like, all that, he may have a ceiling that is like, Lou Williams or something. I don't know what his ceiling is, but
there's a chance he's just the best start off the bench.
Yeah, right. And you can't build around that. And Asar Thompson still seems like a really intriguing piece. He's a year younger in the contract situation, so he's cheaper for longer. I want to see where that goes, especially if you put shooting at the other positions. I think he can be really helpful. And then
he does everything else well.
Correct. And then Jalen Duren, I don't know if he has as much value around the league as he does to the Pistons right now. And even though he struggles with some things defensively, I still see where he could be a really good player. Tell me, like, what would you do, and then what's the most likely move if they unload what they consider a core piece?
I think the most likely would probably be Jaden, simply because I think if he's not going to be a consistent shooter, and yes, I mean, there are nights or months where he's shooting like ridiculously, and then there's months where he's shooting poor. I'm not sure where else he makes up the ground in that right now at this point in his career. I think I would be terrified to get rid of him, because there are obvious qualities that you do like in him, right? But Asar, if Ivey's not a good shooter, but he's better than Asar, but Asar does pretty much everything else right. Like, you could just play Asar at the two. Like, I think he has secondary ball handling stuff that he can get to. He's got to get there, but I think there was.
It's the emergency weather alert in Lansing. I'm trying to turn off my phone. Holy crap! Okay. Sorry.
I just wanted to make sure you weren't under attack.
No, we have a listener, Chris Eastlick, who's a weather guy, and every time we try to get good weather or do a show, he fucks with us. So he just was sending that alert, I'm guessing. Anyway, sorry. Go back to what you were saying.
We're dropping MFers now. There's a world where I could see a star at the two, then you fill out the other spots with shooters, right? Like, I just think naturally. Now, my question to you before I go further, Duren, like we said, has a long ways to go defensively. Not a floor spacer at the center position. Elite rebounder already. That's good. Has some playmaking stuff, but maybe overdoes it at times. I guess, does this intrigue you? If you were running the Pistons, would you see there are going to be teams entering rebuild this year because next year's draft is the draft you want to be in. Like, teams are going to stink next year. There are going to be some stinky teams. They want the Cooper Flags, the Boozer brothers. Like, there's going to be some guys. Would you see what, say the Pistons get pick number 1? Would you see what that Ivy and Duren could get you? Like, I think you, and then you go sign like a Nick Claxton from Brooklyn to be the center in the summer, a rim running big who protects the rim. Like, I think what you said was like Duren, you're curious about Duren's value, and that's fair because I think what you want him to be is a rim running, shot blocking big, but I think you can find those pretty easy, right? So if there's a rebuilding team getting ready to enter those stages, they could get the number 1 pick and those two. Like, maybe they have like 2 or 3 B players that Detroit could add. I'd be curious. I'd be curious what that trio could get you in a trade.
I'd be up to, if you keep Thompson and Cade and you build around those guys, and maybe Thompson is a different version of Tayshaun Prince over time. Who knows? But like, if that's the level player is, it's fine. I think the other thing about Thompson I like is that I think he's less likely to eventually cost max money, but still be a really good role player. I love that. I love the idea of, because I think, unfortunately, while all their assets are largely whatever this draft pick is and young players and not like veterans on expiring deals and other people's draft picks or anything, you do have assets. Like, you have assets in a different way than you maybe ever had before, and you still got them inexpensively and with intrigue around the league. I think you have to move this summer. You have to kick the tires on everything but Cade this summer. I'd be totally for that. I would be 100% for that.
Like, to me, like, the only untouchable is Cade for me. Asar, I need to be doing a deal for a top 20 player to move him. Stewart, my thing with Stewart is I wouldn't move him because the odds, what you'll probably get back in a trade for him is probably somebody he could become. And I think he showed me enough this year as a shooter and obviously defensively. Like, that's just whether or not he's a starter long term. I'm not saying that, but that's a guy you want on your basketball team.
Yeah.
So maybe you have to throw him in to like get a trade over the edge. But like, I'm keeping Isaiah Stewart if I can, just because I don't think the return is going to be like super grand, and he's only 23 or 22.
And his contract's not bad. Yeah, right.
And his contract's not bad. Just nearly shot 40% from 3. Like, he's gotten better every year, maybe more so than anybody on the roster. And then like Simone Fontecchio, like, that's a guy you want to keep. Like, yeah, he's 28, but like, he's like really 23. He just came to the NBA 2 years ago. He showed me more than I thought he had in his bag when he got to Detroit. Like, those are like, if you have those 4 and then you build out the roster after that, like, I think you can do worse depending on, again, I'm not just trading Duren, Ivy, and the pick. I want to see like how grand of a return I could get for that. I wouldn't be against shopping that package around to teams just to see what they come back with. But would I have hesitation on trading Ivy and Duren? Yeah, of course. There's a lot of things that they do that make you go, wow, like, fairly often. But it's like, if Duren's ceiling is like this team, and I've written it before, the issue with this team is it got so bad this year that they might have to make decisions on these guys sooner than they have to, because they have to be better sooner than they have to. Like, if this was a 30-win team, we're not talking about none of this.
Right, and that's what sucks about it. If they had just done it right, they would have got to truly evaluate these guys if they put the shooters around them and put it. That's Troy's biggest flaw. I mean, Troy may never get to see what he wanted to come to fruition because he didn't put the other things around it and give him a chance to do it. Who is your pick to come out of the West and East this year?
The childhood boy in me thinks the Clippers can do it.
Okay.
But there is too much reliance on the health of, obviously, Kawhi and PG. So I'm not going to be disrespectful to the former champs. I'm going to go Nuggets, but I secretly want to say the Clippers, but I'm going to go Nuggets. The East, I mean, I think the East has been overrated this year. If you look at basically 1 through 8 in the West, they're as good as 2 and 3 in the East, and they don't get to play the Pistons and Wizards 8 times a year, like everybody else in the East. So I think Boston's probably the runaway there for me. I just don't. I think everybody else has flaws. The Knicks really love Brunson. I actually just filed my postseason ballot. I got him the last spot for MVP. I love what
you get 5 spots.
You get 5 spots,
yep.
Yeah. But it's like 1 point for 5th.
Correct. Yeah.
So I've decided to reward what he did this year. I love how tough they play. I just don't know if they can get past Boston. OG's always hurt. I would like to see a Celtics-Knicks Eastern Conference Finals. I think the Celtics would handle them, but I'm going to go Celtics-Nuggets with the Nuggets winning it again.
What's your ballot, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't think I get in trouble for saying it early, but I mean, if Adam Silver's listening,
he is a listener. He's a regular listener, but
okay.
But he's got other things to go on. He worries about us and giving gambling advice to NBA players. That's his biggest concern with this podcast. So.
I'm not trying to get banned for life. MVP, I went Shea, and I'm curious. Somebody put a little thing in my head where I was kind of freaking out. They're like, "You're going to ruin Jokic getting unanimous," and I'm like, I think other people. I don't think he'll get the unanimous.
I think Shea is fine. I think Shea is a good player. I mean, I don't think it's an obvious one this year. I don't think it has to be somebody.
That's how I feel. The Thunder are the youngest team in the league. He's the best player on that team. They're top 5 offense, top 5 defense. He's a two-way player. I think he's very well deserved of that. Coach of the year, I went with his coach, Mark Dagnall. Almost went with Jamal. I think Jamal Mosley was second. What other? Sixth man of the year, I went Naz Reid over Malik Monk. Naz Reid in Minnesota. Let's see, what other awards am I missing? Most improved, I went Şengün in Houston. He was eligible even though he played 63 games because he had an injury that was deemed season-ending. I think I went him, Kobe White, and Denny Avdia in D.C., who I thought would be out of the league based on his first couple seasons and had a really good year. All-NBA first team was – actually, I have it. Can you give me, can you make fart noises for a second?
Yeah, it's what I do best. I talk about donuts and make fart noises. It's my strength.
All right, found it. All right, my coach of the year. Here's the top 3. You only get 3 here. Mark Dagnall, Jamal Mosley, J.B. Bickerstaff in Cleveland. I went with him because I am privy to information that not a lot of people are, and I wouldn't have been surprised if I think JB was very close to getting fired before they turned it around. Clutch player of the year, DeMar DeRozan, Steph Shea. Sixth man of the year, Naz Reid, Malik Monk, Bobby Portis. Rookie of the year, Wemby, Holmgren, Brandon Miller. NBA All-Rookie First Team, Wembanyama, Holmgren, Miller, Jaquez, and Pods in Golden State. All-Rookie Second Team, Cason Wallace, Keontae George, Amen Thompson, Derek Lively, and Gigi Jackson. Most Improved, Şengün, Kobe, Denny. Defensive Player of the Year, Gobert, Wemby, and Bam. MVP, I already said that. First Team All-NBA, Shea, Jokic, Doncic, Brunson, and Giannis.
Brunson first team. Wow.
I felt like once I put him on my MVP above Tatum,
I
had to do that too.
Okay.
Tatum was tough. I just think that team is the best team, one of the best teams I've seen in a long time. And the Knicks, I'll always ride for a generously listed 6-foot guard who can carry a team like that. I just think what Brunson did was phenomenal this year. Second team, Tatum, Durant, Edwards, Leonard, Davis. Third team, Steph, Jaylen Brown, Paul George, Devin Booker. And I'm probably going to get killed for this last spot on the third team, but I went Zion over Halliburton and LeBron.
I think it's tough at the end. I think there are like 20 guys you could look at for the last, or 20 guys total, and like spots. 5 or 6 for the last spots. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to reward Zion playing 70 games. He's probably the best interior scorer in the game. I wasn't going to give 2 to the Lakers, who were in the play-in, and I wasn't going. I thought Halliburton was tremendous for 30 games, and then good to meh for the last 40. And then the last thing I have is all defense first team: Rudy, Bam, Wemby, Herb Jones in New Orleans, Alex Caruso in Chicago, all defensive second team, Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Davis, Jalen Suggs, Lou Dort, and Derek White.
All right, I want to get the hair raising on your arms or back of the neck here before we go. I want to just get your sense of MSU basketball a little bit. You're an MSU grad. You're a fan. For every bit of reason and level-headed reporting you do with the Pistons, you lose a little of it when you talk about Tottenham Hotspurs and the Michigan State basketball and football. You were on record as saying at one point that you thought it would be best if MSU missed the tournament because you thought it would ignite Tom Izzo or reinvigorate him to chase certain things and chase a winning way in his program. Do you still feel that way?
I think I said that I think missing the tournament would be a reality check for Tom. You guys is he like on the desk and am I going to have to turn am I have to get my voice deeper? Is Tom in there?
No, he's not in here. He
don't coach my team.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not talking about Michigan.
So do I still feel that way? Well, as I see all of these people entering the portal and Michigan State has not gotten any of them or doesn't seem to be in on many of them, I still feel that way, yes.
So the argument for Michigan State, and it looks like they're chasing, obviously a sizable wing, and they've had Frankie Fiddler on campus last year. So they're going after somebody there. It's unclear the extent of their interest in a big man. I hear from certain people that that's not something they're looking at. I heard early on that they were going to go that way. But I have not heard anything directly from Izzo on this. So what is
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Let's just go the last 20 years.
Yep.
Who would you say are the best big men Izzo has had in the last 20 years?
So we're post Zach Randolph then.
So
you go Paul Davis, Goran Sutan, Adrian Payne,
Jaren Jackson,
and then obviously
Costello.
Costello is a senior. Xavier Tillman is a junior and sophomore and junior. And Nick Ward, offensively.
Yeah.
So there's been a number of guys. Yeah.
So I would say the ones that stand out over those would go Paul Davis, Goran Sutan, Adrian Payne, and Jaren Jackson probably lead that crop that you named, right?
Jaren Jackson defensively. He was a work in progress all year.
All of those guys have one thing in common.
Okay.
They can shoot. It's 2024, man.
What if I told you they have a 5-star big man who can shoot?
Then we're good to go.
Because that's
going to play him.
Oh, they're going to play. Tillman's going to start. Not Tillman. Sorry, Xavier Booker. Too many Xaviers. Xavier Booker's going to start. Whether it's the 4.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Xavier Booker's going to start.
That's been my issue for a long time, and me and my dad used to talk about this. I know Adrian Payne, as a freshman, there were kinks that needed to be worked out, but I can't remember who else was on that team. But he would just I just felt like the way he treats some freshmen, if they're skilled and talented, there has to be a hazing period almost.
I'll say,
go. The team was 500. You can't play Xavier Booker 5 more minutes a game. It's not like they were 28-6. They were 16-16. Why are we still playing Sissoko? And if I have to watch Kohler's mullet one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. Jackson, this team, those big men were bad. I said it. I'm sorry if you guys are listening or if your parents are listening. It was rough. It's tough to watch. As somebody who's 32 years old and has seen this university get some tremendous big men here, it was tough to watch. It was just really tough. And is Hogard leaving?
I think he will. I would be surprised if he's not. He's playing. He's playing in Portsmouth. What's funny is everything you're saying right now about MSU is what Pistons fans are yearning for you to say half the season, right? Just unload. That's what they want.
No, yeah. That's the thing. They want me to say it with this type of tone.
Yes.
I do say all the things. It's just there's a professionalism in which you have to do it.
Yeah. No, I understand.
I'm a fan now.
I understand. I am not what they had at the center position last year was not adequate. and it was a miscalculation. I do think it was a miscalculation more than anything. I mean, there was some playing the politics of I think there's more delicacy with Booker and who they brought in the roster than maybe is understood in terms of making sure he came to the school. I think and so I think there is some stuff there in terms of, like, the one thing you talk about all these people being in the portal, just to play devil's advocate. You know who's not in the portal? Most of Michigan State's roster, when everybody else's roster is. And
I wouldn't either, because they're not playing anywhere else.
Well, okay.
What's Jackson Kohler going to do?
I still think Kohler's an intriguing player. Do I think he's somebody you can rely on to be your starting five next year? No.
I think he's a backup center long term. And for the expectations I have of Michigan State,
yeah,
and that's what it comes down to, right? I'm going to say this, and I'm going to sound crazy because people's views are different than mine when it comes to this. Michigan State is under the Kentucky's, UCLA's. It's tier 2, cream of the crop, tier 2 though.
In terms of blue blood type thing, yeah.
Almost, yeah. Like, they're not the blue blood, but they're like right there.
Okay.
Do I know how hard it is to make a Final Four? I do. There's a lot of luck involved. It's one game. It's hard.
Don't coach my team.
Keeps you in check once in a while.
But, like, we shouldn't have been there that many times and only have one title in 24 years. We just got to play the game. Whatever the game is, it's got to get there. And there should be a standard of player that we trot out there more often than not. And with all due respect, I'm sure Jackson Kohler is a great guy. I'm sure Cooper is a great guy. I'm sure Monty, great guy. But, like, that's what we're doing. Like, that's like what I expect. Like, those are like Clemson guys. And Clemson, you know what I mean?
No, like, I understand the my biggest beef, not beef, I don't have any beef, but my biggest issue with, like, if I were coaching Izzo's team, I would have moved off Sissoko way earlier. Like, I thought his ceiling was reached, and it was what it was, and he was sort of the tum-tum of centers in the sense that you didn't see what was going on around him either instinctually. You know what it's like to play with that person on the court, and like how it affects the rest of the team. And I thought that, and obviously Kohler's injury was detrimental because there were things going on in the preseason in terms of how they were hoping to play. And I think one of the worst things Izzo does, and he's going to have to work on, is when he does have one of these foot injuries, like he's had some years, and a guy comes back in late December, early January, and they just sort of work him into what's already happening. If that person was part of your plan in a different way before the season, it's worth losing a game to try to get back to that. And what they were trying to do with Kohler and Booker preseason, from my understanding, was going to be kind of fun. Now, Booker was a lot less.
I could have lived with that. I could have lived with that.
Booker was a lot less ready than I think they even thought, and we saw it in December. It took him a while to figure out sort of the motor energy. So I give him a little bit of pass for a while. I thought toward the end they could have leaned on him a little more. I think I think Carson Cooper they thought was going to take a bigger step. I think last year was more a miscalculation because when you look at the age of guys, they could have brought in a big a year ago and still had two sophomore bigs who, like, you're not recruiting over somebody if you're bringing in a fifth-year guy and you've got two sophomores. You're just saying we're giving you another year to develop. Now you're bringing in a guy and you've got two juniors. Now you've got Xavier Booker in a performance year, and I think they want to use him a number of ways. Now it gets tricky. Now, again, I think this is big boy basketball. These guys get paid now. You do what it takes to win, and but the same token, you have to be smart about it and who that piece is and how you want to use them. And then you look at, and Jason and I are going to talk about some of the NIL stuff, but you look at Omar Ballo from Arizona, gets reportedly $1.2 million was his ask at Indiana, which allows the Blue Bloods to come back in a different way. Are you going to pay a guy more than anybody else on your roster and more than double most of your roster to come in who's a 12-10 guy? Like, if that's the going rate, like, there are lots of big questions that have gotten complex. And I think it's not as it's just not as simple as that. Said, I would be having some very frank conversations with the big guys, and not saying that I'm writing you off at all. I would love you to beat out the guy that we bring in, but I would bring in one more rugged rebounder at least who could play the 4 and the 5 and could defend, and that, you know, I would give myself a backstop and some protection there, and then obviously a sizable wing. That would be my play without spending $1.2 million on a 12 and 10 guy who was didn't get it done at Arizona. That would be my
and that's totally fair. And I think my biggest I think where my frustration lies, and it's my NBA brain, is like we're in 2024. The guys that are coming in that are in high school and college grew up on, like, if they're a big man, there are many more skilled big men able to be recruited, I would imagine, than ever before because of the game that they grew up in. Watching guys, like, we can go back as far as Lamar Odom, and like these are what these, like, we're talking from there on. Guys have watched big men have skills. I imagine a lot of these kids. I've seen college teams that have skilled big men. Like, what's my guy in Illinois? What's not Crawford?
D. Brown.
No. Currently, like
Deron Williams.
On the team.
Are you talking about Deron Williams?
He's not going to help you. This is what he does.
Is it Crawford from Illinois?
Terrence Crawford.
Not Dane. I know what you're talking about. Hold on. I'm getting the. It's not Cockburn. We know that.
Nick Anderson.
Hold on. Give me. Yeah. Give me 1 second, because this is going to drive me nuts. This is the worst. I love that you're actually doing this to a guest now too.
Terrence Shannon?
Partly because I can't remember anybody. No, it's fuck me. It's Coleman Hawkins.
Coleman Hawkins. Right?
Yeah.
Like, to me, the issue is why are we in 2024 getting 3 big men, with all due respect, don't have ball skills? Like, Kohler has a little bit. And I don't mind Kohler being around. I don't. But like, if that's like plan
Kohler
A
has
or
a
B,
lot of he has a lot of ball skills. He would have been an intriguing piece if they had a really good veteran center.
For sure. I want Kohler, but the blue blood version of Kohler.
No,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. There's a question whether the Big Ten level, especially defensively, although Kohler I thought rebounded and played better defense late, but is Kohler's level. What we're seeing with MSU in the last 4 years is when you make a recruiting mistake, how it can haunt you for years to come. So when you take Foster Lawyer, and then you're in trouble at point guard, right? Or you don't have that position, and obviously they went out and they remedied it in the transfer portal with Tyson Walker, and he slid over, and A.J. Hogarth developed to a certain point, and that was okay. At center, when you don't get the guy, when you get Mady Sissoko. And Mady Sissoko's senior year, he is what Mady Sissoko was.
Yeah.
Then guys like Jackson Kohler and Carson Cooper are taking strays for what's really Mady Sissoko's fault. Sure. And that's ultimately the issue. But in the transfer portal era, you can correct it, and that's what they should have done a year ago. I don't understand why they thought Sissoko had a level to get to, and that's fair. Like, I thought Carson Cooper for a late ad and a off the radar pick was a great pickup. I still have faith in the ceiling of him, and he may develop. People forget that Matt Costello, as a junior, was scared of the fucking basketball in the post, right?
Yeah.
And then they remember his senior year, but they're able to remember that because as a sophomore, he's behind Adrian Payne.
Right.
And so like that's the stuff that when you mess up who the senior is, then your underclassmen, like people talk about this group that just played as a 4-year group and how they didn't win enough overall. Well, they shouldn't take any heat for their first 2 years. That's the fault of the 2018 class. That's on Gabe Brown and those guys, right? Marcus Bingham. That's not on them. The last 2 years.
Forgot about that.
All right. So that's when you miss, it used to really bite you, and it used to be costly, and that's where I think they had a chance. And now in today's day and age, you can make up for it. You can correct the miss. And and they haven't done so. James, you are a beautiful man. I could talk to you all day long. We have to play hoop. We have to play hoop soon. I hope to see you in Lansing.
Hey, I'm back around more often, so we can definitely make that happen.
Looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to it. Great talking to you.
And we said, somebody please guard somebody.
That is the great James Edwards from The Athletic. Covers the Pistons. We'll be covering the Suns and Timberwolves a little bit in the postseason. And good friend, former Lansing State Journal colleague, and the Detroit Players, great podcast with Vinny Goodwill as well. Any takes from that conversation?
You
Jason?
know, I was just wondering, like, are we going to get swept away by a tornado with James going through his 3 teams of NBA? I love how he said, now here's the last pick of my 3rd team. I take a lot of grief for this. And I just thought it would be fitting if the show ended with us just getting swept up in a tornado. By the way, do we stop just paying attention to warnings? Like, I've never had my phone, my watch, everything blow up, and we're just like, anyway.
The show
James,
must go on. It's
I have 4 questions about Michigan State real quick, and then I'm like, do we not pay attention to warnings anymore?
Where like people are fleeing down the street, and like I'm like, turn the phone off. It's like the deck of the Titanic. We play on, man. We finished the last show, even if the studio collapses.
Save yourselves.
Yeah, no, it is pretty brutal out there. Any Pistons thoughts or Michigan State thoughts based on what James had to say?
No, I was worried about the tornado.
Okay,
I was like, are we just going to sit here and just? I see that the Capitol, they evacuated people out. I just was laughing about.
Did they really evacuate
about
the Capitol?
emergency warnings? Like we had one. We went to this MMA thing last Saturday in Muskegon, and then all of a sudden someone pulled the fire alarm, but no one knew that at the time, and it was going off. I'm like, do we just sit here?
How do you find your old warnings that you shut off? I don't know how to do that. I should find that in the phone. Anyway, that we'll be all right. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not worried, but it just makes me laugh. Like, what other warnings do they need to give you?
All right, well, there's
get out of here.
There's one quick thing I wanted to get into separately,
and it's not like we can get out of here anyway, right? It's nasty.
Where are we going to
go?
In here?
Yeah.
No, it's safer in here. I feel
3-hour show. Let's go.
Yeah, let's keep going. Let's bring your Twitter questions in live. We'll just do it. We'll do it live. So to the conversation we were just having about MSU, I brought up that Indiana has landed Arizona big man Omar Ballo, right? And Jeff Goodman reporting that he's getting $1.2 million.
From who? I mean, like
from Indiana,
giant donor. Is that
it's donors. It's they have lots, and there are reports out there saying that Indiana has a $7 million payroll for this NIL class, which is more than twice what MSU had last year.
Okay.
And so what's interesting though is I think I did get it wrong. I had a hot take. I responded to a hot take the other day about saying that blue bloods were going to be less of a thing. Like it was, and it is an opportunity for other schools to get involved because if you have the cash, but you can become whatever you need to be. You can be a player. But these places like Kansas, North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, Indiana, places that have a multitude of donors desperate enough to get to 5, 7, whatever million a year to win, or in Indiana's case, to restore a program, probably in Kentucky's case as well. Like, that's a tremendous advantage. In a transactional relationship world, all of a sudden, there's an element to that really pays dividends if you're a blue blood, because ultimately you have a fan base that is just at a fever pitch all the time. And we saw it with Kentucky selling out Rupp Arena, turning people away to introduce their new coach. They weren't even that excited about it a few days earlier. Illinois is maybe the only program in the Big Ten that comes close to Indiana in terms of blue blood status, right? In terms of like care basketball school, where they are in the sort of below I-80 Bible Belt, that's basketball country. And MSU has some advantages, and then they may have an advantage over Wisconsin in getting Frankie Fiddler. And so, and they have advantages over Iowa, which can't retain their own point guard. But they don't have Indiana money unless, like, Michigan State's billionaires decide they want to do that.
But why wouldn't they want to do that? If
well,
you can get guys and you can make a run
because it's your money.
$7 million?
You don't want to just keep spending money.
You're a billionaire.
There's an argument that if you're a billionaire, like if you really look at, the interest and all that and how you ought to be investing your money, that you could just spend forever and be a legend.
But I mean, you could give one
for your
year,
whole life. And yes,
$10 million.
Well, but that you need it every year.
Understood. But I'm saying, you have to start somewhere. You don't want to have to ask a guy for $10 million and consecutive a year after year.
Well, that's what you got to do. I mean, there's really only 3 guys.
Some years are going to be better than others, I guess. You have to decide whether or not. I mean,
you got to keep your roster, though. You got to keep paying it to keep your roster,
right?
I mean, it's tough. And again, not NIL, 3PS as we call it now, third party.
But are you
salary.
really surprised that this is the way it's going? Because there's no
No.
Like we've talked about, no rules going really into this thing. So I'm surprised. $7.5 million, it sounded kind of low to me, to be honest, with all the money being thrown around.
Well, and the other news that's coming out today that could affect a lot of things is the NCAA Division I Council may have already happened by the time you listen, maybe have happened by now, but was expected to vote on perhaps unlimited transfers going forward. So you don't, it's not the one-time transfer rule that existed that kept some measure of sanity to some degree, I guess. And also that schools can facilitate NIL deals. So now it comes in-house, and that gets interesting. And I do think MSU has some good, smart people at this, and MSU could use this now, especially with what happened with SD4L and just sort of the disorganization there and the expectation that people would blindly give money and people didn't really have an understanding. Like MSU could use it being in-house to be able to facilitate that, to be able to market that along with the Spartan Fund. Like I think schools that do this well, it'll be good in that sense. I mean, it's all ridiculous. It's all ludicrous because it's this. These aren't salaries yet. Right now, we'll see if we get there. It's all third-party money. Some schools that have had success, Iowa, do they become a feeder program? Or is that what they are? I don't know. Does that fan base remain invested? In Michigan State, I don't know that you bring in. I'm not paying for Omar Ballo at $1.2 million if he's making double what my leading scorer is making, and that's going to cause an issue in the locker room. And he's a 12-10 guy, and while he's good, is he?
Yeah, but your leading scorer knows he needs a 5, so I think he might be all right with it. How bad do you want to win? That kind of thing.
This is why you got to get the contracts, though, because guys that right now can come back and say, well, I saw this guy got this, I want more, and it creates dissent. Whereas if in the NBA you sign a contract, you know what you're signing, and you understand different positions have different going rates. Maybe in the college game, big men will have a bigger going rate, and everybody understands it just the way they don't have a real high market in the NBA. It'll be the quarterbacks. It'll be point guards. You get a veteran point guard. This is why a guy like A.J. Hoggard is going to have value on the open market. Senior point guard, right, who's shown he can take over a game at times, has won a lot, maybe not enough, but he's won a lot, and there are going to be places where they're going to find great value in him, and he's going to get, I think, upper six figures. And, again, it's all insane because also if you're a Michigan State fan, you're relying on billionaires for your happiness now too. They have, it's almost weird to you can be critical of Steve St. Andre and what went on with SD4L. It's still his money. He may have mismanaged the whole collective, but it's still
I think about it a lot.
How dare you?
So sorry.
How dare you not spend your money on this? And I don't know. I
feel so bad for these billionaires.
It's a wild environment. And I don't know. I am, yeah.
All right.
Just wanted to point that out. Appreciate all of you listening. Appreciate you, those of you who are curious about James' third-team all-rookie ballot. Look, I listen to a lot of NBA pods, so I really appreciated that and enjoy it. And you got a deep dive there. I think that was a good interview, though. The conversation on the Pistons and sort of his off-the-handle fandom for MSU, which I think he makes a lot of good points, and he's where a lot of people are, and I think that's good to hear. We appreciate Pure Options again this Saturday, the Pure Options block party. If the weather's not great, bundle up. You can get yourself stoned. You won't even think about it. You can go to Front 43 nearby, warm up, grab a beer after the spring game, watch some other games, whatever it might be. We'll be back Friday with Groovy Donut Twitter questions. Good show, man.
Yeah, man.
Couch in the